And welcome back, and a good day to all. Well, you can see that we're inside of our cab of our 2016 2500, and depending on the order that you may or may not be watching the playlist in, then probably some of the previous videos if you've seen on this unit, we removed the center jump seat, installed a full center console, and then installed the aftermarket steering wheel. And in those videos, we hinted we had several more upgrades to come, and this video is going to be the next in our upgrade lineup. And you can see, kind of see what's sitting on top of the console there is what we're going to be doing today. And that is going to be upgrading to what is considered a premium cluster. And as you can see there, we got a much bigger, I believe that's the 7-inch, what is considered the Evic display. Basically displays information in a digital form, much like a laptop, about information pertaining to your vehicle, versus the standard cluster that you can see that we have here, which this one gets the job done. No harm, no foul, no issues with it at all. It just has the smaller, I believe that's either a 3 or 3.5 inch display. Let me get you some light in there. There we go, that's much better. So we're going to be upgrading to a premium cluster that will give us a much bigger window into being able to read said information off the center of that screen. Now, much like the hundreds of other videos that have also done this on YouTube and various other places on the internet, we acquired our cluster off of eBay. If you've got a local salvage place next to you, then more power to you for pulling a salvage unit. I just don't have any good salvage yards in my area, unfortunately. But we got this particular unit from a gentleman off eBay. It did not come programmed. It does have one little scratch, which you can kind of barely see right there in the corner next to the speedometer. But no harm, no foul. Like I said, it doesn't really stand out, and you can really kind of have to look for it. So I have no issue with the cluster that we bought. We got a good deal on it, and like I said, it came from an individual that did not pre-program them. Now, there are a lot of individuals online that if you are uncomfortable or don't wish to partake into programming the cluster yourself, then they're more than happy to do that as part of the service of you buying the replacement cluster. You'll give them a screenshot of your information, they'll pre-program it, send it to you, and then it's just plug and play at that point. But with that being said, we will have to program this cluster to match our mileage, engine idle hours, and drive time out of our old cluster onto our new one. Otherwise, the truck is going to boot up and the cluster is going to show the information of the donor that was pulled out of it. And I would wager, once you're going to see the mileage on our existing 2016 here, I would wager that's going to have a higher amount on it. So to do those changes, and don't worry, I'll get you zoomed in here on the laptop better than me just holding the camera when the time comes to it. But we're going to use AlfaOBD to go in there and update mileage, idle hours, and drive time hours. And then the idle and the drive time hours added together give you your engine total hours. But we need to get that information first and foremost off of our old cluster before we remove it. So just utilizing the buttons here on the left hand side of the screen, the nav buttons, we're gonna scroll through our menu options here until we get to the engine details we're looking for. Now this is gonna ding, I apologize, because I've got the door open because I've got a power cable in here running the laptop, so I'll try to be quick about this so it doesn't drive everyone nuts. But you can see our mileage there, 25,572, and yes, this is a 2016 with only 25,000 miles on it. Let's see. Yep, I'm gonna have to go one more click on the ignition. There we go. I was hoping I could do it by just putting the first click on there, but good. That got the beeping to stop as well. So what we are looking for, if we scroll down here, actually it might be inside vehicle info. Let's go back to vehicle info. And that, oh, pass it up. Okay, so that's what we're looking for right there. Is I'm going to take a screenshot of that with my cell phone so we can see that we have 85 idle hours, 896 drive hours. And like I said, you total both of those together and that'll give you your total engine hours. And then once again, our mileage is 25,572. So we've got that. And like I said, I'm going to take a screenshot of that with my cell phone, and then I'll bring you right back. So let me pause you, capture this, and I'll show you the next step. One moment. And welcome back. Well, now that we have a screenshot of that information, another bit of information that I haven't seen a lot of individuals do this. Some do and some don't. But remember to also have your VIN number handy for the vehicle that you're installing the cluster into, because once again, this will, when we first boot it up, it's going to have the mileage, engine hours, as well as the VIN of the donor vehicle that this premium cluster came out of. So we just want to make sure that we update all of that so it's a true reflection of the vehicle that it's going into. Now again, I've seen a lot of individuals do these particular changes, some with mixed results. Some have reported that they can't get the engine hours to set. Some have reported that everything's set fine. Now, the version of AlfaOBD that we're using, if you can see it on the screen there, I did update this as of this video anyway, and it was currently 2.5.2.0. And we'll be doing these steps on a 2016 2500, but these steps will be pretty much the same even if it's a 1500 and or 3500 of the 2013 to 2018 vintage. I believe the steps will also be the same for 2019 as long as it's a classic, because the 2019 classic is still pretty much basically a 2018 fourth gen version. But with that said, the first thing that we want to do is get this bezel trim out of here, which if I tilt the camera up to get you to see this, we can get a light on this. You'll see 4 Torx bits, 2 on each side up here at the top of this trim. And then once we have those 4 Torx bits out, and when I bring you back, I'll let you know what size Torx bit that was. We'll get this piece of trim pulled out of here, and then we'll look on getting the cluster unbolted. The other thing that we'll do is once we get this trim out of here, we're just going to hit our lever on our steering wheel and just put the steering wheel as far down as we can get it, just to give us some additional room with the cluster there. So let me work on getting these 4 Torx bits out, and then this trim will just pull forward and unseat from some snaps, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. As you can see, we've got our first piece of trim out. So it was the 4 Torx at the top, and then you just kind of take it and just, I found it easier to kind of grab the trim from the top and kind of break it free from its clips there, and then work on the 2 side clips. And those, as promised, are a T20. Yes. Yep, that is a T20 Torx bit for all 4 of those fasteners. And then what I'm going to work on next is getting the screws out of here that actually hold the trim in. And it looks like it's just the 2 at the bottom. Yeah, okay, yep. Just the 2 at the bottom. One there in that corner. And another one there in that corner. Oh, I got a little bit of a raindrop. So looks like it may be a little bit of delay before we continue. Anyway, I'll press on with this. Either way, you won't notice. It'll be just a few moments for you, but it may be a little bit longer for me. But I'm going to take these screws out, and then generally what you can kind of do when you get it loose is to angle and kick this side of the cluster out this way to free yourself up some room to get to the single connection that's on the back corner of this unit here. That's why it's kind of helpful to have the steering wheel forward. So let me get these 2 screws, or 2 bolts and or fasteners, however you like to call them, out of here, and I'll see if I can get this old cluster out, hopefully before it starts raining on me. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, it stopped raining, at least for the time being, so we're going to try to proceed forward. Maybe we can get this wrapped up. But on this cluster, I found it easy just to kind of tilt it forward and then shift it sideways, basically getting it to lay as you see here. So this would normally be the left hand side over here. This would normally be on the right, but as you can see, just kind of getting it to out, tilting it forward and getting it to rest. As you see here, again, get you easy access into that connector back there. And let me get you some light on this. There we go. So you can see, just like our replacement, we're dealing with a single connector. So I'm going to get this cluster unplugged. We're going to get the new one in here and at least set in position, and I won't screw anything down or put any of the fasteners or trim back in until once we get it programmed and we confirm that we have it programmed, and then we'll go on from there. So again, remove this connector, get the cluster out of here, and swap it over with the new one. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, you can see we got our replacement cluster in, and when you're seating the bottom of this, one of the things that you're kind of fighting when you take this out, just want to mention it here, along with the screw you see there on the side, there's also a little kind of plastic guide pin, and the cluster is falling down here a little bit, but there'll be a little plastic guide pin right there as you can see it, and that's kind of what you're fighting when you go to take this out, which is why it's easier to kind of grab the top of it, like I was saying earlier, and just kind of tilt it forward and kind of shift it then sideways once it's on its face, to shift it around. So now that we've got this in there, we should be able to put our key in the ignition, use our AlfaOBD software to then attach the cluster and manipulate the values that we need to. So obviously there's our old cluster setting off to the side there in case we have to fall back to that one. But let me get you zoomed in where you can see that I'm doing it here on the laptop a bit closer, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So I'm just going to plug. When I'm using, a lot of individuals will use the Bluetooth dongle for AlfaOBD. I'm using the USB link that you see here, so the OBD Link EX. I find it works just fine, especially when running off a laptop, or even an older laptop, that is. Now you can get this software to run on a Windows laptop. You can also get it to run on an Android device, which having this run on an Android device may tie into, well, actually it'll tie in a little bit to the next upgrade project that we got planned for this truck. So no spoils there, but I think you'll like it. Either way, I'm going to get plugged into the OBD port, and then I'm just going to put the key in the ignition in the on position. I'm not going to start it. And then we'll see if we can attach to the instrument cluster and then update our mileage. And you can see, in case you can't see it, like I said, I got you zoomed in, but the viewfinder really doesn't give me how good of a view you can see. But I'll explain what I've got selected thus far. I've already got it set to Dodge Ram model 2500, so Ram 2500, and we're going to connect into the function called instrument panel. And I'm using the option for ECUs down here of instrument panel cluster my 2013 plus PowerNet. Now there's two of them here, so I'm not sure if that's just a bug as to why the same option is listed twice. But I did try this earlier with the old cluster, and I was able to get connected just fine by going into the first option, so that's what we'll choose here. And just to show you the new navigation page here, you can see it doing its boot up, and you can see that it thinks we have 52,948 miles. Well, that's the first thing we need to address. And you can see it does read our tire pressure monitors, and I can already tell you, and the camera doesn't do it justice, but just the visual, how much more rich that looks, is night and day difference. So let's get this party started, shall we? I just got hit with another raindrop, so hopefully we can at least get the mileage in here. Because with the mileage, if you look up these procedures online, it kind of varies a little bit. A lot of individuals, sorry, just trying to get the tripod resituated here so it'll kind of sit on its own. A lot of individuals have varied success with different methods and different versions of software. So the steps I'm going to show you and the methods we're going to be using here, again, we're using AlfaOBD version 2.5.2.0 on a Windows laptop, talking to a cluster in a 2500. And what I'm doing now is just going to pull up my screenshot here off camera of our mileage. And we were at 25,572. Yeah, definitely don't want that to stay 52,000. So 25,572. So once again, those settings we're on is Dodge Ram 2500 instrument panel, and I'm using the My 2013 Plus PowerNet because we're in a 2016. So if we hit connect here, tell you what, let me close the software and bring it back up, because I did plug that OBD USB reader in kind of after the fact, and it may not see it. Yeah, let me do that. And yes, I want to run. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, you can see we're status connected now in the upper part of this screen. So now if we go into the little active diagnostics icon, the little icon of the car with this hood up here at the top, let me pick you up a little bit. And if we go down into odometer correction, and we want to do a premium 7-inch cluster. Again, let me get our mileage, which was 25,572. This procedure sees odometer set value, set form 123.56. And so what I'm going to do, I don't have what the dot was in particular, so I'm just going to say 27,572.6, because that is apparently the form that it's looking for the mileage in. So 25,572 is looking for that extra dot. So if we say start to this, so it wants us to turn the key off and wait for 30 seconds. I'll even pull the key out. And what I'll do is I'm going to pause you and bring you back just so we're not burning 30 seconds of dead air here. So I'm going to put, well, it'll probably be more like 15 seconds, but by the time I get this timer set. Okay, so let me pause you and I'll bring you back. One moment. Okay, welcome back. Now I'm going to put the key back to the ignition, turn it back into the on position, and then we're going to wait, per the instructions, for the gauge to finish its startup sequence. Right now it is booting up. We're getting the Ram logo, and it looks like it is done with its boot sequence. Yep, parking brake engaged. And then we're going to say okay. We're using the EX. Okay, and I see the cluster doing a bunch of flashing. Hopefully you saw a little bit of that there. You can see where it says procedure complete. Now it says it wants us to turn it off and let it sleep for several minutes. So this is the part in the process we're going to say okay to that. And we're going to come in here, take our key out of the ignition. Sorry, just releasing the parking brake. It was partially enabled. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause you. We're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. Kind of leave the vehicle, let everything go to sleep, and then I'll bring you back. So 1 moment. But I can already see on the dash that it did update the mileage already, but we're going to give it its sleep time and we'll do the next piece. 1 moment. And welcome back. So it's been a little over 5 minutes. Let's see what we got. You can see the cluster is kind of waking up there a little bit on its own. I'm starting to get pelted with a little bit more rain. Hopefully this stops. But most importantly, once that boots up, you can see 25,572 miles on that odometer. 25,572. So let me get you zoomed. Let me pause you, get you zoomed back in the laptop, and we'll continue with the next two pieces here. So 1 moment. And welcome back. So we've got our adapter plugged in. We're plugged in our OBD 2 port, and we do have the key into the on, but not the running position. So let's do this. Let's relaunch our Alpha software. Now our old settings are still there, so they're applicable. We're just going to reconnect back into our instrument panel. And now what we're looking for, once again, we're going to go back to the car at the top. Let me pan you up here. Active diagnostics. The next options we are looking for are going to be inside of, I believe it's called Program Customer Features. And we're going to select the option of feature that we want. In this case, we're going to do the idle hours. Yeah, lifetime idle hours. Enter time in hours at the bottom. We're going to do this as 85 hours per our screenshot. And then we'll start this. You can see that it's currently set to 430. And when I click start on this, what is going to happen is the cluster should start to flash. And I'll show you that here. Get your pan back up to the cluster. It says procedure complete. Actually, the cluster didn't even flash that time. I guess the question is whether it did it or not. Let's see. What I am looking for, oh, it did change it. Okay. So you can see that we've got, let me get you in a little bit better spot. You can see we have idle hours of 85 now. Now we need to change the driving hours to be 896 because we definitely don't have over 1,500 driving hours on this particular Ram anyway. So let's get you back down at the laptop here. And then what we're going to do is come back in, and now we're going to change this to be lifetime engine hours. Okay, so what we need to do here is add our two numbers together. So we need 896 and 85. So we need 896 plus 85. So that's 981 total hours. So we want to put 981, because remember we're adding in our idle time and our drive time to come up with our total. And then we're going to start that procedure. You see it's currently set to 2013. Okay, it says procedure complete. And then what I'm going to do is key cycle it, or actually let's see if we can just come off of this menu. Go back onto this menu. Yeah, so we may have the bug that some of the others have experienced where we're putting the total in and the drive time. So let's do this. Let's disconnect from our cluster. Got it? And then we're going to shut the system down. Let it go to sleep, and then we'll come back and check it. So I'm going to pause it while it sleeps, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, you can see after just power cycling the cluster, it did take our total of 981. So if we go back and look at our screen capture from earlier, we have an idle of 85 and a driving of 896. So we entered the idle, which was 85. We gave it the total, and it did the math on its own and came up with the driving time, which matches our screenshot. So awesome. So at this point, the only piece we have left is writing the VIN number into that cluster. So what I'm going to do, and I have this kind of sitting here on the side, but what I'm just going to completely close out of AlfaOBD just to make sure that we start fresh. I'm going to grab a copy of our VIN number. C3 Charlie ends in 942. One moment. Okay, just verifying with the actual VIN, metal VIN on the dash, that's what we're looking for. So, once again, we're going to relaunch AlfaOBD. We're going to say yes, we definitely want to launch it, otherwise we wouldn't have clicked on it. All that's the same, 2500 instrument panel. We're going to connect to it. You'll see we're connected in the upper left-hand corner. Again, click on Active Diagnostics, and this time the option we're looking for is VIN Write. We're going to select the option for a 7-inch cluster, and then we want to enter our VIN. Okay, and we're going to start this procedure. Turn key off for 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to pause you, wait for 30 seconds, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So we've got the laptop exactly where we left it. We're going to power our cluster back up. Again, we're just going to go to the on position. We're going to let the cluster boot up and do its thing. Cluster's going through a startup procedure now. Okay, we look good. We'll give it a few more seconds here just to make sure. There we go. We're back to our engine hour screen, and we're going to say okay to this. And it wants to know, and the reason why it's asking this is because we shut the truck off, so it's lost its connection. And that's the link that we're using. You'll see the procedure started. Cluster is flashing. Cluster is doing a reset, it looks like. Procedure complete. Turn it off and let the car sleep for several minutes. Alrighty. Let's do that. I'm just going to wait for the cluster to boot up here, and then I'll shut the key off. Okay, we're off. Now, again, instead of just making you wait here, I'm going to pause you. We're going to give it about 5 minutes, and I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. So we're giving our truck about 5 minutes to sleep here. We've got it powered on, and we let the cluster finish its boot sequence. I'm just going to go back into AlfaOBD. Now, this isn't something else that we need to program, but I just wanted to show you, at least through this software, how you can verify that the cluster accepted the new VIN program, or VIN number you programmed in. So we're going to go back into our instrument panel using the same settings that we have before. You see we're connected, and if we come into status and faults this time up at the top, and then down here, click on Read System ID. It'll go out there and pull some information about the configuration of our instrument cluster. And we can see here that it did, in fact, take the VIN that we wrote into it. So that is awesome. Since we are done with the software, I usually like to come back in the start and make sure I click on my disconnect. That way it just terminates any handshake or other operations that may be going on that we want to make sure are finished. Yeah, just coming from an IT background, you kind of get a habit of some of those things. But as you can see, we've got our idle, driving, and total hours now in there. We have our mileage corrected. It is seeing everything in the truck. We can scroll through our various options like up and down. You can see the options here on this side cluster change, as well as the main information there in the center also corresponds and changes with it as well. Now, items like the mileage and such, it's going to take a little bit of time for the cluster to kind of relearn the vehicle, so it's going to take some drive cycles to get it done. But most importantly, we have a much more vibrant and a lot more real estate and more information and easier to see information on the screen as well. So again, mileage, engine hours have all been updated. Everything else on the cluster looks to be responding correctly. So what we're going to do at this time, I'm going to pause you. We're going to get our 2 lower fasteners back in, get our trim and everything back in. I'll bring you back, and then we'll start it up, and we can at least see the tachometer and things like that nature come to life. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, as you can see, we've got our trim bezel and everything back in. Everything's bolted back in place and secured. So let's see what we get. Beautiful. See, your tack works. You can see that we got oil pressure via our oil pressure gauge. And if we come back into looking for system info, there we go. Oh, sorry, let's go back forward one. And you can see that we've got about 71 psi oil pressure. So just to show you that we are receiving updated data in the clusters as well as the Evic in the center. So awesome. No check engine lights, no other lights of that nature. Everything looks good. We're not seeing anything that we don't expect. We'll let that idle down here a little bit more before we kill it. And let's just go back up to speed. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and turn that off so I don't have to keep speaking over it. Okay, but awesome. As you can see there, it works, and it works out quite well, and it does make one nice of an upgrade. I will put a link in the description to the eBay individual that I bought this cluster from. Be mindful, he does list on these clusters that he sells that he does not program them. So if you don't have the AlfaOBD software or another method to do your programming, aka your changes, then you'll have to send it to somebody who can make those changes for you. As well as you'll find a multitude of other sellers that as part of the agreement of buying the cluster, they'll do the programming for you. You just have to send them the information. But anyway, I hope this information proved useful. If you have not subscribed already, please consider doing so. If you have, I thank you immensely. We're trying to reach that 3,000 mark by the end of the year. Now, this accomplishes our premium cluster upgrade for our 2016 2500. And we have another item that arrived just yesterday that will be in the next video. I'm not going to spoil that for you. I think you're going to like it. If you kind of see where the camera's pointing, may give you a little bit of clue as to what change is coming up next. So with that being said, I will let you go, and I will bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye.